Welcome back, everyone, to Speed Smart Podcast. I'm Jane.
And I'm Lucy. And today we're tackling a topic that honestly I think every single English learner has grappled with at some point. How do you stop translating in your head and actually start thinking in English?
Oh, absolutely, Lucy. It's like the Holy Grail, isn't it? That moment when you realize you're not going from your native language to English anymore, but just English. It feels almost magical.
It really does. And for so many, it's a huge barrier. You know, you can understand a lot, you can read pretty well, but when it comes to speaking, there's that awkward pause as your brain is doing this elaborate mental gymnastics routine.
Exactly. That's what we want to help listeners with today. We're going to break down some actionable strategies to actually train your brain to speak more fluidly and think directly in English. And it's not as intimidating as it sounds, I promise.
Definitely. So where should we even begin with this, Jane? Because for me, the biggest leap was recognizing that I could actually start thinking in English, even if it felt clumsy at first.
That's a fantastic starting point. The first and perhaps most crucial step is awareness. You need to actively try to catch yourself when you're translating. When you see a cup, instead of thinking taza and then cup, just go straight to cup. It sounds overly simplistic, but that conscious effort is vital.
I love that. It's about building those direct connections. My first foray into this was actually narrating my day to myself, silently, in English. Like, okay, I'm getting out of bed now. I need to make coffee. What am I going to wear?
That's a brilliant technique, Lucy. The internal monologue. It's like having a constant, low-stakes practice session. You can do it anywhere, on the bus, while doing chores, walking the dog. No one's judging your grammar mistakes in your own head.
Exactly. And it gets easier. At first, you might find yourself stuck on a word, but then you just make a mental note, or even try to describe it in English if you don't know the exact word. That alone strengthens your fluency.
Which leads perfectly into another point. Stop trying to be perfect. When you're thinking in English, or even speaking, prioritize getting your message across over perfect grammar. Fluency comes from practice, not from never making a mistake.
Oh, tell me about it. That fear of mistakes is such a confidence killer. It's like, you know the words, you know the grammar, but the moment you open your mouth, you freeze up because you're scared of saying something wrong.
It's a common trap. So beyond the internal monologue, what other practical steps can people take to really immerse themselves even if they're not living in an English-speaking country?
Okay, well, listening practice is absolutely fundamental. And I don't just mean passively hearing English. It's about active listening. For example, when you're watching a TV show, try to summarize what just happened in English in your head. Or, if you're listening to a podcast like this one, try to predict what we're going to say next.
That's a game changer. It forces your brain to engage with the language, not just let it wash over you. And speaking of listening, exposing yourself to a variety of accents and speaking styles is huge. Don't just stick to one type of English.
Absolutely. British, American, Australian, Canadian, Irish, they all have their own rhythm and quirks. The more exposure you get, the more adaptable your ear becomes. And honestly, the less intimidated you'll feel when you encounter someone with a different accent in real life.
For sure. Another really effective strategy for training your brain to think in English is to start associating words directly with images or concepts, rather than with their translations. Like when you learn a new word, don't write down the translation. Instead, draw a little picture, or write down synonyms in English, or use it in a few English sentences.
That's so smart, because it builds a direct neural pathway. You're essentially bypassing that translation step. I remember when I started doing that, my vocabulary retention improved so much because I wasn't just memorizing word pairs, I was creating a whole English context around them.
Right? It makes it sticky. Another thing I always recommend is shadowing. Have you tried that, Lucy?
Oh, shadowing is fantastic. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically listening to a native speaker and trying to repeat what they say almost simultaneously. Like a shadow. You're mimicking their pronunciation, their intonation, their rhythm. It feels a bit silly at first, but it works wonders for building muscle memory in your mouth and brain.
It does. And it really helps with the rhythm of English, which is so different from many other languages. It teaches your brain to anticipate the flow of sentences rather than just individual words. And you can do this with anything. A snippet from a podcast, a line from a movie, a news report.
Exactly. And if you combine shadowing with that active listening we talked about, you're essentially getting a full workout for your English brain. You're hearing it, understanding it, and then producing it.
Total immersion, right there. Even if it's just for 15-20 minutes a day, Consistently, it compounds so quickly. What about writing, Lucy? Does that play a role in training your brain to think in English?
Oh, absolutely. I think writing is super underrated for speaking practice. Start small. Keep a journal in English, even if it's just a few sentences a day. Write your grocery list in English. Send an email to yourself. It doesn't have to be a novel.
That's a great point. Because when you're writing, you have a little more time to construct your thoughts in English without the pressure of a live conversation. It helps solidify those patterns in your brain before you have to produce them on the fly.
Exactly. And it builds confidence. You see that you can express complex ideas in English, even if it takes a bit of effort. That confidence then translates to your speaking.
So true. Another thing I've found incredibly helpful is trying to explain complex concepts in English to myself. Not just simple things, but something you're passionate about. If you're into astrophysics, try to mentally explain a black hole. If you love cooking, explain a recipe.
Whoa, that's next level. I love that. Because it forces you to dig deep into your vocabulary and grammar. You can't just rely on basic phrases. You have to really articulate your thoughts.
It stretches you, right? And it shows you where your gaps are, which is valuable feedback for what to study next. But remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about making English a more automatic part of your mental landscape.
And being patient with yourself. This isn't something that happens overnight. There will be days when you feel like you're making huge strides, and then days when you feel like you're back to square one. Just keep at it.
Patience is key. And honestly, finding someone to practice with, even if it's a language exchange partner online, can accelerate this process. Having a low-pressure environment to try out these new thinking in English muscles is invaluable.
Totally. Because ultimately, the goal of thinking in English is so that you can speak in English more naturally. So don't forget the speaking part, even if it's just talking to yourself in the mirror.
Mirror practice, classic and effective. You see your own facial expressions, you hear your own voice. It makes it feel more like a real conversation, and it builds that comfort level.
Definitely. So to recap some of our key strategies, start with that internal monologue, narrate your day in English. Actively listen and engage with English content, trying to summarize or predict. Associate new words directly with concepts or images, not translations. Shadow native speakers to improve rhythm and pronunciation. And finally, write and speak as much as possible, even if it's just for yourself.
Excellent summary, Lucy. Remember, every little bit counts. You're literally rewiring your brain, and that takes consistent effort. But the reward, that feeling of effortless English communication, is so worth it.
It really is. So for all our listeners, we encourage you to pick just one or two of these tips and start implementing them today. You might be surprised how quickly you start noticing a difference.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear about your experiences. Share your own thinking in English journeys with us on social media. You can find us at Speak Smart Podcast.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Speak Smart Podcast. We hope this episode has given you some great tools and motivation to really supercharge your English learning journey.
We'll catch you next time, and keep speaking smart.